Buckle up, everybody, because we are going deep into crypto today.
We are.
It is always an adventure.
Always something new to talk about.
Always. I mean, look, I don't think there's ever been like a dull day in crypto, has there?
Absolutely not, and especially not today.
No, not at all. There's so much going on, we're going to try to break it down for you.
Yeah.
We've got some news coming out of CoinDesk's crypto market update today.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look at Bitcoin, which is dipping below $85,000.
A little scary for some
A
people.
little scary. What does that mean? Is the party over?
Right.
And then Solana, their community is actually making some big decisions, so we'll look at that.
Yeah, big vote going on there.
And
Yep.
Ethereum looks like they're getting ready for a major upgrade. We've been hearing about this for a while.
Yeah, finally back on track.
Finally back on track. It's happening. And then this is something that I think is always really fascinating to me. The institutional investors, they're making moves.
They are big time.
So even if you're not like a huge investor, I think this is something that everybody should be paying attention to.
Definitely. The trend is very clear.
Yeah. So, all right, let's start with Bitcoin.
Okay.
5% dip.
Yeah.
That's its lowest since November.
Yeah, things are getting a little choppy out there in the market.
A little bit. What does that mean? I mean, like for the bull run, is this a blip or is this a trend? What's going on?
Well, it's really too early to tell. We need to see a little bit more data, but, as always, we know that Bitcoin is volatile.
Yeah.
And that's part of, I think, why people are drawn to it, but also, can be a little scary for some people. But yeah, I mean, there's a few things that are going on, I think, in the world that could be affecting this right now.
Sure.
Interest rate hikes are still on the table.
Yeah.
There's some, fears of recession, the economy.
Yeah.
Even some rumblings, I think, of increased regulations. So all of these things, I think, can cause some downward pressure.
It's almost, it feels like a little bit of a roller coaster sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right. You're going up and then, things are exciting and then suddenly you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, you never know which way it's going to go next.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at some of the other players out there.
Yeah.
In the altcoin world, kind of a mixed bag today, Solana and Ripple, they're both up 5%.
Doing well.
But then Cardano, down 5%. What is going on? I mean, it's like a constant, game of musical chairs.
Yeah, well, I think, I think one of the things we should really look at, though, is Solana, because there's a lot happening in the community.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really interesting. So, it's doing well price-wise. It's up 5%.
Yeah.
But there's also a development that I think we should really talk about. So the community, they actually voted and they rejected a proposal called SIMD 0228.
Okay, now what does that mean for someone like me who's, not necessarily like deep into the Solana lingo?
Well, basically what that means is that, it would have changed the inflation model for Solana.
Okay.
So basically what it means is that the smaller validators, those are like the people that are part of the network, they have a lot more power than maybe was previously thought.
Okay.
And I think it really showcases the power of decentralized governance.
Okay, so you're saying, this idea that the community actually gets to vote, it's not just like one person making a decision or a small group of people, it's actually the community having an impact.
Yeah, and I think, this is a great example of that because, the vote was actually pretty close, but ultimately I think it shows that, the community can come together.
Is there a downside to that?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, one of the concerns is that sometimes maybe the voters aren't fully informed.
Right. Yeah.
They might not understand all of the implications. And so, you could have kind of a mob mentality, people just voting based on emotion or, what they're hearing from other people.
Right. So it's this balance of making sure people are informed, but then also giving them the power.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a real challenge, I think, for a lot of these crypto projects as they grow.
Okay, so we've got Solana over here, kind of taking charge of their own destiny, which is interesting. But then we have Toncoin, which is surging. It's up 20%.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
It's a huge jump. What is going on over there?
Well, it's interesting, right? It's some people think it might be related to, that Telegram's founder. He got his passport back from French authorities.
Okay.
And so, people are wondering, is there a connection there?
Right.
Is it just a coincidence or is there something more? I think it just really shows how much the market reacts to news and to sentiment.
Absolutely.
It can just be one headline and suddenly things are moving.
It's crazy. Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about Ethereum, because we've been hearing about this Pectra upgrade for a while,
Yeah, for a long time.
and it looks like it is finally back on track.
Yeah, it is. They're saying, May is the target date, so we're getting close.
And this is a big deal for Ethereum.
Huge deal. I mean, upgrades are important for any network, but for Ethereum, this is really going to improve its functionality, hopefully make it a little faster.
Okay, so it's not just like hype, it's actually making things better.
Yeah, it's actually changing how things work behind the scenes.
Okay, so is it almost like if you were thinking about like a race car, it's like upgrading the engine?
Exactly. It's all about, making it more efficient, more powerful.
Okay, all right, so let's talk about money.
All right, let's do it.
Big money,
Hmm.
okay? Because tokenized treasuries, now this is something that I think a lot of people don't really understand what that is, but it's hitting $4.2 billion.
Billion with a B.
Billion, yeah. So first of all, explain what is a tokenized treasury.
So basically, it's taking traditional assets like stocks and bonds, and you're basically turning them into digital tokens on a blockchain.
Okay.
This is like a digital representation of those assets.
Okay, and so why are we seeing this huge number?
Well, I think what's really interesting is that institutions, and I'm talking about like big players like BlackRock, these are the giants.
Right.
They're starting to really get into this space.
Yeah.
And so they're seeing the potential.
Okay.
And it's not just BlackRock, there's a lot of other players as well, but I think that's a really good example of how the industry is evolving.
It's huge. I mean, to see, like, it used to be just like the tech enthusiasts that were into crypto.
Right.
But now you're seeing, like, Wall Street, like, really taking notice.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good sign, I think, for the long-term potential of this technology.
Okay, so we've got all this money coming in, but Bitcoin's dipping.
Right.
What does that tell us?
Well, it's interesting. It kind of seems like a contradiction. But I think what it suggests is that these institutions, they're not really fazed by the short-term volatility.
Right.
They're looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
They're looking at the long-term potential of blockchain technology.
So they're not looking at the roller coaster. They're like, we see where this is going.
Exactly. They're like, we're in it for the long haul. We're not worried about a little dip here and there.
Okay. All right. So they're looking at the big picture. What about the U.S. Senate? They're getting involved, right?
Right.
We've got this Genius Act, great name.
Catchy.
It's catchy. It's moving forward. So what does this mean for, like, the average person out there?
Well, what it means is that regulations for stablecoins are probably coming.
Okay.
And stablecoins, just so everybody's on the same page, they're cryptocurrencies that are designed to maintain a stable value.
Okay.
So they're often pegged to the US dollar or another fiat currency.
Okay.
So the idea is that they're less volatile than something like Bitcoin. And so, the Genius Act is basically saying, hey, we need to make sure that these stablecoins are actually stable,
Right.
that they're backed by real assets.
Right.
And so it's a bit of a, it's a controversial topic.
Yeah.
Some people think that it's going to stifle innovation.
Right.
Other people think that it's necessary to create a more stable environment for adoption.
So it's that age-old question, is regulation going to help or hurt?
Right, exactly. And I think, it really depends on how it's implemented.
Right, yeah. But it's interesting that, like, even with this potential for regulation, institutions are still pouring money in. I mean, BlackRock, their crypto fund just hit $1 billion.
$1 billion, yeah. And a lot of that is thanks to Athena. They invested $200 million.
It's a huge number. So, I mean, what is your takeaway from all of this? Because we've got, like, Bitcoin dipping. We've got altcoins kind of doing their own thing. We've got institutional investors, like, piling in. The U.S. Senate is getting involved. It's a lot going on.
It's a lot. I think the main takeaway for me is that institutional interest is not going away.
Yeah.
It's just growing.
Yeah.
We see that with the tokenized treasuries.
Right.
We see that with BlackRock's fund.
Yeah.
So that suggests to me that the smart money is betting on the long-term future of this technology.
So where does this leave us? I mean, because it seems like we're at this point where there's so much happening. Is crypto going to become less volatile because the big institutions are getting involved? Or is this just the beginning? Are things going to get even crazier?
I think that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah,
I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
it's a great question to leave everybody with.
It is.
I think, what we always say is this is a roller coaster.
Yeah,
It's exciting. It's a little scary sometimes.
absolutely.
But one thing's for sure, you've got to stay informed.
You do.
So make sure you're checking out sources like CoinDesk for all the latest updates.
Yeah. Stay up to date because things are changing fast.
They are every day.
Every single day.
All right. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.